Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today we're going to continue with the development of the railway track, starting with a level crossing. Right, so this railway crossing is going to cross both tracks and link this piece of road with this piece, which currently isn't at the right level. It will be at exactly the same level as these other base plates when I've done the supports on the far side. And this base plate isn't a road plate because it's almost entirely going to be covered by this crossing. So the fact that it's a slightly different grey, looks like the sort of older grey, doesn't it? And the fact that it's not got the road markings on really won't matter at all. Now what I've done since last time was add a little bit more ballast to this side so we can see the confines of where we've got to do the crossing itself in between this half sleeper and this half sleeper on both tracks. And the design is going to be pretty similar to the crossing that I've already done, which is right over there in between the Brick Bank and the Grand Emporium and Casino. And that largely consists of these slopes, the 8x6 slopes, which are quite shallow, and they'll go sort of in front of the rail like that. And because it's raised up, we'll have 1x8 like that. And then we'll have loads in the middle, except I've started in the wrong place, haven't I? It should be more over. Like that. And we'll have 3 of these on the front. Obviously they're going to need a little bit of plates underneath to link all this together. And then I guess I'm going to have to fill this entire area in the middle with more of these tiles because there definitely isn't room for it to sort of go down and then back up again anywhere near. So I'll have to think of something there. So I'm trying to think of a way of not having just a huge expanse of light bluish grey tiles. So one thing I thought was if I sort of inset these a little bit, just by one, I could have maybe using these hazard stripe tiles that I like to use. Unfortunately, I've only got enough to do my monorail, I think, so I'd have to get some more. But nonetheless, I could put sort of hazard warning stripes there. But the gap here is 10 long. So I was thinking maybe that would be white. So it sort of looked like that, just breaking up a little bit. You know, with light bluish grey in the middle. I could even experiment with doing a central reservation line, you know, continuing the dotted line on the road in white that would have to be raised because it'd be on jumper plates. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't know. I'm going to get started on adding the plates, which I'm just going to use black or whatever colour because you won't be able to see it. I'm even going to use some really useless plates, like sort of outline of a hatch, things like these wedge plates, just because they'll work just as well and I haven't got a use for them. So I may as well use these to support everything up rather than using really nice, good quality square plates that I can use elsewhere. Okay, so you can see I've used all sorts of scraps there for making this firm foundation, so it's very solid. And now the track is completely flat and not going to wobble when trains go over it, but I've used plates with holes in it, wedge plates, all sorts of things, weird colours that I've just got random plates of. So then I can add my slopes to this side as well. And the edge that you'll be able to see will be in light bluish grey, which will be very appropriate. So one method was to have the tiles just going right up to the edge. So I thought I'd try that on one side. So that looks like that. And then on the other side, you can see I've started a white stripe with a 1x1 tile there with a hazard. And then the white. And then the hazard, and then this would have the grey starting therefore in one. So I'd have to put a instead of an 888 tile, I'd have to have an 868, I think, if I did it on, because obviously I'll do both sides the same when I decide which way I want to do it. So put on a few more of these. Now the other thing that's going to actually sway this decision is the fact that the monorail, which is currently sort of way over there, is going to sort of snake round to about directly over here, because I want it to link up with my main station, which is going to start about here, right after this crossing. So it might be that you don't see all this that much. But yeah, what do you think of that white line with the hazard stripes on? I'm not entirely certain I like it. Maybe I prefer the actual sort of clean edge, all done in grey. As usual, I'm probably going to get responses from my viewers saying that half like one more and half like the other. The thing I don't like is that the white stripe sort of starts, you know, right all of a sudden right over here. I think it might look better with this edge, but I'm going to experiment next with putting a white central reservation stripe like we've got on the road, a dashed line that will have to be raised, and see what that looks like instead. But yeah, I think I don't like this. And I'm going to have these hazard stripes all over the monorail, which is going to be, as I say, just above. So that might be overdoing it. Right, so I've put a dashed white line on, and how I've done that is just putting a couple of 2x2 jumper plates down and a 1x3 white tile on top periodically. And you know what? I don't think I like that either. It also creates the problem that I've got an 8, 9, 10, 11 long space to fill with tiles for the rest of it. So that'll look a bit odd as well, as opposed to having it clean with just 3 8s following the sort of same pattern as this, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, I think it was worth a try, but I don't like that either. And I checked with Mrs. Hood, and she doesn't like this side bit either, so I'm going to definitely scratch that. Good. So I'm just going to do it boring in a great big mass of light bluish grey. Okay, so that does look more boring, but I think when all this is built up and you've even got a platform for the monorail over this side and it's all a bit more obscured, I don't think it will be too much of a problem. It's not supposed to be a massive feature after all. But one thought I did have was going back to when we did the last crossing. I thought about having a car trapped in between the two railway lines. Now, we didn't have room on the other railway crossing because the gap between the tracks was only 4 studs. And the gap on the far side was only about 4 studs as well before the actual wall. So there wasn't any room there or there on the previous crossing. But now we've got this 10 wide gap, or 8 strictly speaking, between the two tracks, and that is long enough to have a car. Not any old car though, because most cars are probably longer than that, but definitely one of the smaller cars that Lego does. Now this one looks a bit like Emmett's car, but it isn't. It's set 3177, small car from 2010. Now the only changes I've done to this is I've added a number plate on the front because I like that. And that's just off, well, you can see set 3222, but that's a set I don't have and probably won't have, so I don't really mind using that number plate up that I've got on a brick hall. And I've changed the wheels so they're a bit shiny and more interesting than the ones that were originally with the set. Now the man who comes with that set, pretty nondescript, but I'll have to change one thing on him, and that's his expression. From that normal smile, I think we'll have to give him an absolutely terrified look. So put his hair back on. Yep, that's looking good. So let's put him behind the wheel. I doubt you'll be able to see it that much, but nonetheless, it's important to me that we get these little details right. I might be able to get a good photograph showing the terrified face. So there he is behind the wheel, looking absolutely terrified. Hopefully you can see that clearly enough. And then what I'll need to do is just pull out one of these and then replace it with a 2, a 4 and a 2x2 brick, because what I don't want to do is just have this car loose, because if it's loose it might roll backwards or forwards and cause a massive derailment, and we don't want that. So I will put the car there. Yep, that fits. And that fits. Awesome. So we have got a bit of interest on there after all. Bit long-winded, but nonetheless. So we'll have to have crossing guards, obviously, and those will have to be down, otherwise he wouldn't be trapped, really, would he? So those are the signals for this side. I've got 2 more for the other side, but next I need to do the barrier. I will do a barrier on the other side, but we haven't got the raised base plate yet, so I'll just focus on this side for now. And then for my railway barriers, I get the 4x2 wedge plate in black, and then put on a 1x8 plate, 1x8 white tile, another 1x8 black plate, tile, a 1x10 black plate, white tile, and then a modified plate, which is the 1x2 with the sort of fork bit, and then the 2x1 with the bit that goes on a fork bit, and that's the bit that sort of holds it up at the far end, so that's the barrier. And then for the bit that holds it up, the hinge bit, we've got a 2x2 slope with whatever those pieces are called, sort of a Technic bracket type piece. And it's important that you have as your Technic pin one of the black ones with friction. And then onto that you can put a 1x2 Technic brick, and I just tied it up with a 1x2 grill piece on the top. Oh, got ahead of myself. After putting on the 1x2 and 1x4 bracket piece. So it looks like that. And that then can hold on to the arm like that. It's a bit hard showing you all this black on black, but nonetheless. And then that'll go there. Before I do that though, here's another one, which I've already put some red and white dashed stickers on. So that will go there. And the good thing about doing it with 3/8 is that it's the same width as the actual ramp itself and lines up with it as well. So I like that. So this one I'll put stickers on and it can go on the far side. And they do open from the left because we drive on the left in the UK and my city is a UK city. So he is driving the right way. I think that crossing's looking pretty good. Obviously we need to finish the other side when we get the base plate raised. But as you can see, as promised, very little of this base plate is showing at all. So it doesn't matter that it wasn't a road plate. We've got the pavement obviously on this side. The ramps go actually over the edge of it. So there's only a tiny bit showing on each side. And even though I don't need to cover it up, I think I will because I want the grass to be uninterrupted. So I think I'm going to put some green plates like that. And like that. And I think that looks even more smart. Now, one subscriber has already commented that the track is a bit simple in that it's just 2 loops. And I do agree that it would be more interesting if it had some switches or points, depending on your preferred term, going around the track. But the thing is, when you start changing the track's straight edges, then you end up with a very, very complicated edge to build up against. And it's very inefficient if you want to have, say, a row of modulars up against a track that is 1 minute at this level and then the next minute going off 16 studs different. And then you end up wasting an entire 16 long strip of the width of your city. So I don't want to do that. But one thought I did want to do was to have this railway line seemingly going off into the distance. So if I could use a point here and have the track that the train will actually follow continuing round the bend, but actually have the suggestion that this track goes off into the wall, which obviously is my way of saying ... into another part of the city, it would show that the track that we're seeing is just part of a greater network. So it's perfectly aligned to have a 16 long normal piece of straight track there and this point here. But you can probably see the problem. We've got the wrong sort of orientation for a corner built into this point piece, because it's sort of set up to make a parallel track with the use of a turn. So it's sort of set up to do that. And if we just put the turn on the other way around, then it also won't work because the orientation is completely off. So the only way of doing this is by starting the whole thing off way further back, but then it would start hitting this track, so you'd have to do that and all the rest of it, and I'd again lose a lot of building space. So what to do? Well, a lot of you will be screaming at your devices or your TV or your monitor or whatever you watch this on, saying there are third-party people who make that. And you're right, there are at least two that I'm aware of that make continuous curve points or switches, which is essentially blending a normal corner with the point, so it just continues round as is required here. And that's a very useful thing to have. So technically I need one of those. So I'm undecided whether to buy one, because they're quite expensive if you only need one. It's about 15, 20, 25 euros, depending on who you buy it from. And some of them look a lot better than others. But I thought, why not make my own? I've got a spare corner piece. I've got a points piece. So I think if I chop one in half and chop the other one in half and glue the two pieces together, I'll have exactly the piece I need, which will basically be something that looks like that. So I don't think I've got time to do that today, but that's definitely a future project, so I can have the track going into the distance and around the corner. The next thing I have for your delectation is a train traffic light. And that is basically this structure here. So I've got a dark bluish grey 1x3 sort of tile hinge piece at the bottom, connected to a light bluish grey 1x2 modified plate with fork. And then we've got a 1x10 plate with three of the clamp handle sort of pieces. And then at the top, another fork and 1x3 in reverse with two dish pieces on in black, and then some studs in white, green, or trans green, and trans red. So that gives us this lovely structure here, which I can attach to the side of the railway. And that will be the traffic light which decides whether the fast white train has to stop before going into the station or can proceed straight through. And I've got another one which I'll also use, and this will go on the cargo train track, but it will go on the far end of the station because I'm going to have the trains going in opposite directions. So the passenger train line will work clockwise and the cargo train line will work anti-clockwise, because I think that's a lot more interesting. So this traffic light will be facing the other way into that oncoming cargo train and will therefore have to be on the other end of the station. So I'll put that in my pile of things to add when we're at that stage. Now the other thing you might notice on the edge of railway lines, especially near things like traffic lights, is a sort of junction box. And it's probably just a box that's got some electric kit in it. And it's a very simple construction. I've got a 2x4 brick with three 1x4 bricks on the back. And then just open this, just a normal window frame piece with two of these doors, all in dark bluish grey, and a 2x4 tile on the top. And that's just so I can put that sort of nearby, say there, and it just adds a little bit of scenery. So I like that as well. So again, I've got a second one of those, and that'll go with the other traffic light at the other end of this straight. So this little section's looking rather good now. There's still a lot to do in that I've got a heck of a lot of ballast left to do for the rest of the track. And sadly, I really must have made a miscalculation at some point, because the number of pieces I've got left to do all the ballast is quite frankly nowhere near as much as I'll need. So I can't quite work out where I went wrong, but nonetheless, we're going to have some unballasted track all around sort of this side of things, in between here and the bridges, for quite a while, I think, until I get some more orders going, which are not needed for many other reasons, so they'll be a while off. I think as a short video, I'll probably go through my journeys in turning these two pieces into one. If you don't like the idea of me chopping into Lego, maybe avoid that video, but I'll do that soon. Otherwise, this is track part 2. We've got a lot further to go, haven't we? Still, I do think he's very fun. Ah! So as always, thank you very much for watching. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome videos. I noticed that about 2/3 of my views are from people who've not subscribed to the channel, which I find a bit surprising. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, I think we'll get on with the rail bridges across Brick Bay. And the first part of that is going to be building the cliff face, which will support the headland near the harbour end of the bay. See you then!